Up, Jerry. The hotline's lighting up here. This must be our guest calling from Maryland, from Baltimore,
Wait a
Maryland.
minute. Wait, hang on, Glenn, because you.
What?
Now let everybody know this was your idea. You spoke with James Ellsworth, if this is indeed him calling, and I was a little hesitant about having him come on the podcast because I think I may have said some unflattering things about James in the past. So,
well, I mean,
I don't know.
You have, but also he's a loyal listener to the show, so he does know what you said about him. So I wanted to bring him on.
Answer the phone and make sure it's him.
Oh, okay, hold on. Let me hit the hotline here. All right, is this a WWE superstar James Ellsworth on the line?
Hey, what's up, Glenn? Hey, King, how are you? Nice to hear from you.
I'm great, James. Thanks for coming on the. I keep wanting to call it a show. I don't know if it's a show or if we always refer to it as a podcast. I'm still so new at this, I don't really know. But thanks for being here with us, James.
Yeah, I think the cool kids are calling it a podcast these days.
Oh, okay. Well, then we need to call it a show then, because I'm definitely not a cool kid. But anyway, where you at now? You at home right now?
Yeah, well, I just got home, flew in this morning. We did SmackDown last night in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm home here in Baltimore.
Aha. Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's I have the fond memories. I think Grand Rapids is where I got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame back in 2007.
Oh, nice.
And speaking of back in the day, before we get started in what you're up to right at the moment, SmackDown and all of that sort of stuff. Back in the day, somebody reminded me that I guess you and I have actually been in the ring and had matches against each other years ago. Is that right? Do you remember that?
Oh, no, I've never wrestled you, but I've been on independent wrestling shows with you in the past. Yeah. Never had the opportunity to wrestle you.
Oh, I see. So what kind of show was that we were on together?
When I first started, I was like 17. I was still like a student. That was, I guess, 2002. We were in Baltimore at a show, and that's when I was first started. So that was a long time ago. And then most recently, I think 2012. I think it was the week after.
That's still like 5 years ago. Huh? Wow.
Yeah. So. That's the last time I was on a show with you, because I know you still do independents, but a lot of them, I guess, are around your area, maybe you still get flown over everywhere. But
well, no, you know what? I was actually was that show? Was it part of that Maryland Championship Wrestling, MCW?
No, it was this company that was only around for a little bit, and real small venue in Pasadena, Maryland.
They probably went out of business after you and I were on the same show together.
Now, Jerry.
What? I did some shows in Maryland. There's, I think MCW is still around, isn't it? They still do independent shows there.
Oh yeah, they went out of business for a couple of years, but then they started back up, and I hear they're doing real well.
Yeah, I was actually. Well, I may have been the one that put them out of business a couple of years, because I was actually the MCW champion there for a short time. But I think you said. Did you say that on the show that you and I were on years ago there in Maryland, we were dressing in, was it not a very nice dressing rooms or something?
Yeah, I think you were a little upset. I guess they had you in a broom closet, I think it was, and you talked about in your promo that night. You were talking about in your promo. You brought it up.
Oh my gosh, that's what. Well, I mean. It really doesn't bring back any certain memories, because I've dressed in a lot of broom closets. I was going to say, believe it or not, this is honest to goodness truth too. Back in the day when Monday Night Raw first started, and we wrestled in this little small place in New York called Manhattan Center, literally guys dressed in the broom closet in that building as well. I mean, we were dressing on the stairwell, we were dressing in broom closet, just any kind of place. The place was so small that just anywhere the guys were, could find a place to put their bag down and sit down and get dressed. So yeah, I've dressed in many places like that, as I'm sure you have as well, right, James?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't bother me a bit. Wherever I lay my head is home. It's not a big deal. But you were a little upset about it that day, but it'll never bother me.
Now, Jerry, I have to interrupt here, because you mentioned it when we answered the phone. On the previous show, we talked about the women's Money in the Bank match, and you mentioned that James Ellsworth looks like a guy that he should be buying a ticket to go on the show. Now, I want to bring...
What? I said that.
Yes, you did. Yes, and James remembers because he listens to every single show. He's a loyal Dinner with the King listener. Now, I talked to James before we did a little show prep together. And King, do you still feel that way? Even though James has been in WWE for a year, he main evented some SmackDowns. He competed for the WWE Championship, King. I mean, this guy's a bona fide stud. He's the big hog.
Exactly right. And let me say this while we have James here with us on the show, and I'll say this to everybody. No, I do not still feel that way. Here's a guy who has, I use this analogy a lot. It's sort of like a football game in the WWE. They hand you the ball, and when you get handed the ball, you either run with it or you fumble. And James has certainly run and scored a touchdown with it. I mean, he has certainly changed my opinion of him. As a matter of fact, he single-handedly, he and another guy, Enzo Amore, make me really miss being on color commentary, because James is the kind of guy and the kind of individual and character and personality that I could have a ball with if I were doing color commentary. And I mean, I'll watch his matches and I'll see what they're doing with him, and I just think, God, I could have so much fun with this guy, and I think that, like I said, once again, I think that's one of the things that's missing with the color commentary in the WWE today. It's so hard line, and it's so, oh my gosh, look at that. There's a brain buster that should almost kill the guy or something like that. But with a guy like James, I mean, and I'm sure James knows he's not the best looking guy. I'm sure whenever a group picture's made, they hand you the camera, right, James? I mean, it's one of those things that, you could have a lot of fun with, not only his appearance, but his physique and all that sort of stuff. And same thing with, because like I said, he doesn't look like the rest of the crowd. He doesn't look like a typical WWE superstar. And the fact that he has turned that into his advantage and made and been so successful with it is just I tip my crown to you, James. You've done really well, and I apologize for saying that in the past about you.
Oh man, you don't have to apologize to me. I do appreciate the kind words. I mean, like when I listen to you or I see you do a wrestling promo, I take it with a grain of salt. You're one of the greatest heels or villains, of all time. And plus, I'm from Baltimore, and we did steal your beloved Browns and won 2 championships since then. So maybe you hold that against me. I don't know, but no, it's not like I've heard it all my whole life. Like I've had everything said to me my whole life, insults. I've been bullied and all, and I've never cried about it. I've always. You mean even, wait a minute, James, even back in school, that time when your mom dropped you off at school and she got a ticket for littering? Yeah, that didn't make you cry? No, not at all. I've always just took it, smiled on my face, and and kept going. That's why I love Jerry, because again, one of the greatest antagonists of all time, if not the.
And listen, I once again, I got a million one-liners, especially, and when I see you, a lot of them come to mind. But oh my gosh, the fun I could have with what you're doing now. Oh my gosh, right. You and Carmella, and the bringing you out on a leash. Oh, it would not do to have me on there now, because it wouldn't be politically correct, but it would sure be fun and entertaining, I can assure you.
Well, going back to what you said, JBL had a lot of fun with me while he was doing commentary, and man, I'd watch it back and I would just laugh at the things he was saying. And every now and then he would come to me and say, "Hey James, do you have any insults for me to call you? I'm running out." I would help him with his insults.
Well, I mean, that's like I said, that to me is I don't know, to me is what's missing with the commentary now. And when I see you and Carmella out there, I mean, a million things come to my mind that I would love to be saying, that I would love to be talking about. But how is your relationship for real with Carmella?
Actually, so when I first got there, I didn't know a lot of people. I knew some people that I worked on the independents with, but Carmella, I don't think she did any independents before she got to WWE. So I think it was last year at the European tour in November, she came to me and said, "Hey, I have this idea about putting you with me, when you're done with the Dean Ambrose and AJ stuff, whenever that comes to an end, I have this idea I'd like to pitch to Vince, they put you with me, and you know, like, you fall in love with me, and I use that to my advantage to help me win matches and, you know, get me to the women's title. I said, oh yeah, that'd be a great idea. So I didn't know her much back then, but now, like, we're good friends. We text all the time. She's a very, very smart girl, and she's easy to talk to, and we get along great.
Well, that's really cool. So actually, it was Carmella's idea, and she pitched it to the creative and everything, and that's how that all came about.
Yeah, she went to Vince and said, "Hey, I have this idea with Ellsworth," and she pitched it right to Vince, and Vince loved it, and here we are. It's started last December, and we're in October now, so it's going on. It's 10, going on 11 months that her and I have been on TV together.
Yeah, trust me, in the WWE, that's a long run. that's a long, successful program, man. No kidding. Well, what's in the future? Do they come to you guys, and how far in advance? I've told people, you know, when in my case it was always like from 1 week to the next, because, you know, we would get there to SmackDown or to Raw and go out to do the commentary on the show, and they would come to us sometimes when the show was starting. We still wouldn't have a finished run sheet to tell us who's going to wrestle who, because they'd say the show's not completely done being written yet. So, I mean, is it still a case where you guys just find out from week to week the new ideas and what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, it's still week to week. We have an idea of what we're doing, like, going forward sometimes, but it's week to week. And, like, you know, the creative team, they get a lot of slack, but man, do they have a hard job? Like, it's not an easy job. Right?
Without a doubt. That's why the turnover is so great. I mean, I don't see, and there are some guys, Ryan and Ed, and a lot of the guys that have lasted a long time, and it's always, I'm amazed because it is so difficult and such a demanding job that to have longevity there is like a miracle.
Yeah, so when I work with those guys on promos and everything, I just try to, like, have fun with them and have a good time with the guys while they're there. Because I know, like, I can imagine that has to be very stressful and very hard to come up with all these new ideas for, you know, 5 hours, if you count NXT as well, like 6 hours of TV a week that they have to come up. And then if you have a pay-per-view, that's 9 hours of TV a week. You have to come up with ideas fresh.
Right, and now it's like 2 pay-per-views a month too. Wow.
So 2 pay-per-views a month. How do we get to them? How quickly can we get to the pay-per-view with these stories? And it's just got to be very stressful. So those guys, they take a lot of slack online or by people, but man, it's just not easy. So.
Well, I mean, you said that Carmella pitched the original idea of you two guys working together. Now, since you've been together, do you guys ever see the writers and say, "Hey, I got an idea," and run new stuff by them as well?
Oh yeah, see me, I love telling stories using the art form or the platform of the WWE or professional wrestling. So if I have an idea, I'll go to them and say, "Hey, what if I say this?" Or what if, you know, like right now, like our whole story is I'll do anything for Carmella, and
right.
You know, like, he dumped me in the ring, and after that we did the backstage. We're like, "Look, if you please take me back, I'll do anything for you." And then she kissed me and said anything, and I said, "Yeah." Then she slaps me. So she's really just belittled me, treated me like crap, but I'm okay with it because, you know, the story is I'll do anything for her. Like right now, she has me on a leash. She has me doing dog tricks and all that. And
yeah, man. And you're getting paid. Usually, you have to pay good money to get something like that done.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
I wouldn't either. That's just one of my one-liners. I'm sorry.
Sure, King. Sure.
Oh my goodness. But anyway, it is a very entertaining. It's a very entertaining story to follow. I mean, you know, that's it goes beyond headlocks and wrist locks and moonsaults and all of that sort of stuff. It's a personal type story that I really enjoy it.
I appreciate it, and hopefully people are looking at it going, "Man, what's going to happen next? What are they going to do next? What is she going to make him do next? Does it go farther than just dog tricks? Is she going to make him run into a wall? Is she going to make him, I don't know, punch Baron Corbin in the face just because she tells him to? Like, where's it going to go? Hopefully is what people are wondering, and hopefully continues to be as successful as you're saying it is.
Well, you're right, and that sometimes is. It gets forgotten that the secret to the wrestling business being successful is when the fans can't figure out what's going to happen next. When when they're out there wondering what is going to happen next, and that's when the interest is there. That's when you get big crowds coming. We say in the business, that's when you draw. That means you get big crowds coming to see the shows because they're invested and they want to find out what's going to happen next, and they can't figure it out. And that's what you guys have been successful with, at least in my opinion so far.
All right, and I appreciate that. And just like I was just talking about the day that they had her. That she dumped me in the ring, and then we did the backstage like an hour later, and she kissed me like no one saw it coming. Like she just kissed me in the backstage out of nowhere. We've never kissed before, and they reacted real good. And I just with our story, I don't think people can guess where it's going next. Like it's very unique, and we're having fun. And like I said, we get along, and we look forward to seeing what we're doing from week to week. So it's been a blast.
I don't know about you. I don't know how that shoot went, but if I were in your situation, I would have had to rehearse that scene several times. I would have said, "No, that's not good. Let's do another take. I didn't like that. Let's do another take."
Well, unfortunately, it was live, so we had to.
Oh, darn it! Yeah, Carmella's a lovely young lady. So the two of you are it's like an odd pairing. I don't know why.
Right? Yeah, it's. And she's so smart. Like when people ask me about Carmella, the first word that comes to mind is smart. She's a very, very intelligent woman.
Well, and she came up with and worked for a while, I guess, NXT with Enzo, right?
Enzo and Taz, yeah. She was with them. She was their valet in NXT.
Well, I mean, here's another guy, and I keep hearing stuff. I'm not there all the time, just usually at pay-per-views now, but I keep hearing stuff about Enzo having legitimate heat behind the scenes with some different guys, but Enzo is, I mean, he's such a natural heel, and I just know that right after he won the championship there when we had him on the Raw Talk, it was like he was getting legit heat with me during the interview. So I can understand how it happens in the back. But the guy, he's the other one that I said he makes me miss being there to do color commentary for a guy like him, because he's just such a character, and he's very good at what he's doing right now too.
Oh yeah, he just has presence. If he's in a room, you're going to pay attention to that guy. He just has such a presence. And yeah, I don't know what the story is about the heat. Of course, we hear stories and all that, but when I see him, he's nice to me. I've had no problem with him. When I did the Braun Strowman match that put me on the mat there, he's one of the guys. And I didn't know him. He called me afterwards and said, "Hey, kid, you did a great job." And so I've personally never had a problem with Enzo. And I've seen or heard stuff that he may have said he got heat with people, but when it comes to him and I interacting, he's always been real cool to me.
Yeah, me too. So anyway, he's doing well, and it looks like that he's got a bright future there. As I think you do, James. I once again I want to reiterate that I was having to. You've made me eat my words. So and that's a good thing. It really is.
I want to know,
no problem.
James, when you talk about Carmella pitching some things to Vince, and there's a lot of stories about people being scared to approach Vince about stories and whatnot. But I usually ask this to people who are fairly new in WWE and whatnot. But do you have a interesting meeting Vince McMahon for the first time story?
Well, the first time I ever had a conversation with him was after the Braun Strowman match. And I was just an extra talent. They just needed someone to put Braun over, and I was, that day Arn Anderson picked me to do it. He was the producer, and they gave me the 20-second promo, and then I did the match, and then when I get to the back, the first person I see is Arn. He said, "Hey kid, you did a great job." He said, "Believe it or not, Vince wants to see you." And I said, "Vince wants to see me? What?" So
that's usually a bad thing.
Right, I'm an independent wrestler at the time who's just an extra talent, and so I go to the Gorilla, and I'm walking up the steps to go see Vince and Gorilla, and he walked out of the Gorilla to find me, and he's like, "Hey kid, you did a hell of a job, great job out there. You killed it." He was and Triple H. Like, I was just so blown away. Like, it's such a blur in my head how it went. It was like literally a 10-second conversation of him saying "great job," and like it just caught me off guard so much. It's such a like, you know, like now I look back at it, and I could just remember him coming out of the curtain and gorilla there, and you know, like about to walk down the steps, and I met him right there at the steps, and he just said "good job," and Triple H shook my hand. It was still to this day probably like one of the coolest moments I've ever had in the wrestling business. For sure.
Well, you know what, and rightfully so. You should be proud of that, because I know JR and I used to talk about it. You know, like we would do a broadcast of a Monday Night Raw or something like that, or a pay-per-view, especially, and you know, you just know you had done a really good job and had a really good show or whatever, and then you walk after the show is over, and you walk back to the gorilla position, and you just walk right past, and Vince is just sitting over there, you know, still on the headphones or anything, and he never says, you know, almost ever never say anything to you. And so JR used to always say, you know, he doesn't realize just how much just a pat on the back every now and then would mean, or just how much a pat on the back, say, hey, good job would mean. But I swear to God, I think it comes from the fact that Vince is, you know, he's such a workaholic. I mean, that business, the WWE, is his life. And Vince is also a perfectionist. I mean, you know, he feels like everything that he does has to be done perfectly, and he expects that. And workaholic people expect that same type of thought process and behavior from everybody else. They don't realize that everybody else doesn't think that exact same way. So, I mean, you know, when guys go out there, I think it's just that Vince expects them to do a great job. And so it's almost like he's not surprised when guys do a great job, and he, you know, so he doesn't really think about going over and making that extra effort to thank somebody or to congratulate them or to give them that pat on the back, you know. And I don't think he means anything by it when he doesn't do it. It's just almost, I think he just thinks, hey, you did a good job, but that's what you're supposed to do. You're a professional, you know. So for him to get up and say that to you and everything, that is special, and you should cherish that moment. Believe me.
Oh, and I do. And Jericho, when I went on his podcast, he said the same thing. He said you don't know how often that doesn't happen, him getting up and doing that. So, I mean, yeah, that's definitely something I'll cherish for the rest of my life. And I have so much respect for Vince McMahon. I mean, look what he's turning the WWE into. It's, you know, this global phenomenon, as they say. And how can you not respect the guy? And he is a workaholic. And every time I'm out there, it doesn't matter what they give me to do. I know with my character, they can do so many off-the-wall things with it. And I'm very blessed to be that character that they can do those things with. And hopefully it keeps me around a while, because there's certain things they can do with me that they can't do with, like, you know, a regular talent on the roster. Like, who else could they put in a leash? You know, like. So,
wait a minute. I can think of somebody. Me.
You would mind Carmella.
I would volunteer. I would volunteer for that job with Carmella. Believe me.
Right. But I mean, whatever they give me to do, I'm gonna.
It's a good. Hey, Glenn, it's a good thing Lauren doesn't listen to this podcast, isn't it?
Oh yeah, your girlfriend. Which I don't know if you remember. I met her after we had SmackDown in Memphis. I came to your restaurant. You took me down in the basement, showed me all the cool stuff you had on the wall there and all.
You were one of the few guys that, and I appreciate that. You were one of the few guys that came over and came over and met with the fans and everything after. What was that after SmackDown, right?
SmackDown, yeah, a couple of months ago this year, yeah.
Well, speaking of nicknames, James, on Talking Smack, which I thought was great to have for you guys to go on after, you know, to kind of be yourselves and you know, non-scripted and just, you know, just basically, you know, talk to each other and shoot some great promos. But Daniel Bryan gave you a nickname called the Big Hog, and
what's up with that?
Yeah, what's up with that? I'm scared to ask, but inquiring minds want to know.
Well, you know, I work for a PG company, so there's only so much I can say about this. Daniel Bryan, who is a very funny guy in person, as he is on TV, he's just such a cool, funny guy. He so I've been on Talking Smack a lot, and you're right. I miss Talking Smack. We still have it after the SmackDown pay-per-views, but when we had it every week, you had a lot of opportunities to go on there because, you can only have the same guys on there so many times, and it was a weekly show. So I was on there a lot, and I don't know, one time I was on there, and he just, I think it was when Carmel and I first got together on TV, and Renee asked Daniel, why do you think Carmella hangs out with him? Like, what do you think is the deal with this? It's so weird. And he's like, and Daniel Bryan says to Renee, what are you talking about, Renee? Haven't you heard? James Ellsworth, he's the big hog. And she just lost it right on the set and, referring to, certain male parts, I guess we can, say on the air here. But yeah, I guess that's what he's referring to. I'll play dumb and act like I don't know. But yeah, he's...
Wait a minute. Are you serious? That's what that meant?
I think that's what he was referring to.
Wow, now I know what he meant when he called me Miss Piggy. I don't get what the heck.
But, yeah, again, it's just Daniel having fun, and I don't know, it just went from there. He kept saying it every week on Talking Smack, and then people on Twitter and all of that started tweeting it to me, and I just,
the big hog. I wish I'd have known. That should have been the first question we asked you. We could have talked to the entire hour about that.
You mean we talk at length about that?
At length, I like it.
But yeah, I don't know where he got that information, but I don't think I should comment on it further. But yeah,
no, especially don't deny it. So anyway.
Anyway, but before we wrap it up, James, you are in Baltimore, and you mentioned this before, stealing our beloved Browns and turning them to the Ravens, and then winning a Super Bowl on top of
two
it.
of them.
Oh, yeah, two Super Bowls.
Well, sorry about that. But did you know that Jerry the King Lawler wore a Ravens jersey once before? And
yes, SummerSlam against Jake Roberts, right?
Yeah.
In Cleveland. Yeah.
One of the biggest regrets of my career. I don't know, and honestly, I think at the moment, I think if I remember correctly, that was my idea. Because I was, at that point, my job was more important than my loyalty to the Browns. But so I just knew that the Browns were gone, and I just knew that would get a tremendous amount of heat with the fans there in Cleveland, and that's what I was trying to do. So yes, I went to Vince and said, "What if I wear a Ravens jersey out there tonight?"
Oh, I love it.
Yes, he did. That's exactly what he said.
Oh man, yeah, that's just easy stuff to do to make 10,000 people mad all at the same time. That's
what we call cheap heat.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Easy to do. But I will say, that's now that since the Browns have come back, Glenn and I both diehard, loyal Browns fans, and it's been much to our chagrin the way the performances that we get from the Browns every single week. It just can't, every week we say it can't get any worse, and it somehow seems to get worse. But we're still pulling for them.
You guys are definitely dying hard with the Browns, but at least you have the Indians who are playing in Game 5 tonight of the ALDS. You have them, and you have the Cavs who won some championships. I mean, they're not doing bad in Cleveland. Yeah, the Browns are, probably the worst football team of all time. But you got the Indians and the Cavs, to have fun with up there in Cleveland. And Game 5 is tonight, King. Hopefully the Indians, who are up 2-0 in the series, and the Yankees bounce back and tied at 2-2. Hopefully the Indians can, finish them off tonight in Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm worried. I'm sitting here I'm like sweating right now that you started talking about that. I'm so nervous about this. I don't know what happened. I don't know what will happen if they don't pull this thing out.
I'm sweating, but I got the meat sweats.
We won't talk about that. We've talked enough about meat on this podcast. Hey, listen, James, we'll let you go, man, and we really appreciate you coming on to the show. And I just before you go, while we were here, Glenn knows I'm kind of getting into poetry a little bit. I'm trying to write little poems and things like that while I'm, in my spare time and while I'm killing time here, just waiting for the Indians game. I wrote a little quick poem about you, James, and I hope you like it.
Oh, wow. Can't wait to hear it.
Okay, here it goes. Roses are red, violets are blue. James, don't feel bad. Frankenstein was ugly too. How's that? Is that okay?
It's beautiful. I will have to write you one and maybe tweet it to you at some point.
All right. James, listen, no kidding. I mean, I really thank you for being on the show. We really enjoyed having you, and we found out some new and interesting facts about our buddy James Ellsworth.
I don't know if they're all facts, but but yeah. Like I said, like Glenn was saying, I listen to you guys' podcast every week when I'm on the road, on the road 4 or 5 days a week, and I'll in the car rides I'll put you guys on and check you guys out. I've always been a big fan of Jerry the King Lawler. The guy that trained me, Axel Rotten, used to wrestle for you in USWA a little bit, and he used to always speak very highly of you. And all the old USWA, AWA stuff, I've always been a fan of watching, and I appreciate being on the podcast, and had a lot of fun.
And you should have mentioned that earlier, because we could do an entire podcast just about, I'm sure, your experiences with Axel Rotten, yours and mine both.
Oh yeah, it's such a shame because he was so smart about the business, and he was such a good worker that nobody even knows about. He did all that hardcore stuff. That's what people remember him for.
Yeah.
But he was such a good wrestler, and he wrestled for you, and people don't know that. And of course, he had his demons, and ultimately led to him not being with us anymore. Very sad. It's a shame he never got to see me live my dream here in the WWE. But it's life, and sometimes those things happen. But yeah, he always spoke very highly of you, and I just wanted to point that out.
Well, James, I appreciate it. And listen, hopefully, you'll come back on, and we'll be talking about some of the things you're doing, getting ready for WrestleMania and all of that sort of stuff. Okay.
I hope so, man. I hope that 2-minute thing I did with Braun Strowman, that was supposed to be a 2-minute thing. I hope it lasts forever.
I got you. Thanks again. Thanks, James. Appreciate it, man.
All right, guys. Thank you.